Welcome to Recharge with Richardson. 5 minutes of hope and inspiration every Monday and Thursday. And now, here is today's episode. Well, welcome back to another Recharge episode here on this Monday morning. I hope you're doing great. We've been talking about the power of choice and how to make good choices from God's Word for several of my last few sessions. And I want to wrap up this morning with a final important concept about choice that we don't often think about. I've entitled this episode, The Little Choice Myth. And our entire society operates on the idea that little things are no big deal, that a small choice doesn't make a big difference. We're really conditioned to think that little things don't matter. But listen to Jesus's own words in Luke chapter 16, verses 10 to 12. He says, "He who is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. And he who is unjust in what is least is unjust also in much. Therefore, if you have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to your trust true riches? And if you have not been faithful in what is another man's, who will give you what is your own?" Did you catch that first part? He who is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. In other words, if we're faithful in the little things, then we're going to be able to handle big things. And so Jesus is telling us a powerful principle here. And that principle is this: it's the little things, little choices, that determine the ultimate destiny of your and my entire life. You see, many choices contain moral challenges that change the direction of our lives. And most of those choices really aren't the big, life-shattering, life-changing kind of choices. They're what I call the little 2-inch or 6-inch choices that over time take us away from really our intended goal and really the destination that we want to arrive at. Very few of us set out in life to decide to be failures or decide to be overweight or unhealthy or clueless in how to relate to people, least of all our close family members. We don't set out to ignore God and then in times of crisis wonder where he is. It just kind of happens a little bit at a time. And those are the results that happen millions of times a day all around our nation, around our world, and even right here in our own community of Richardson. Why? Well, the reason why is because it's because of a series of so-called little choices that sets us on a course to the destination that we find ourselves at, which is not where we want to be. So how do we get there if we don't want to be there? Well, it's those little choices. How important are the so-called little choices? If you decide, let me give you a quick illustration. If you were to decide to walk from Dallas to Boston in a straight line, but in your first mile, you veered off that line by just merely 2 inches, and you just maintained that course. You were just 2 inches off after the first mile, and you maintained that course. Where do you think you'd end up? Well, a mathematician could tell you exactly where you'd end up, but to the best that I could figure it out, you'd end up either in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or in Montreal, Canada, depending on which way you veered off to the right or to the left. But you wouldn't be anywhere close to where you wanted to be, right? So I want to encourage you today, never underestimate the power of little choices. Someone once said, the road to hell is paved with little compromises. Just as those little so-called little choices can put you in totally the wrong place, I want to encourage you today because it works the other way too. If you're standing at the bottom of Mount Everest looking at the summit and thinking, that's impossible, and I'll never make it, of course you can't make it in one step, in one leap. But if you take thousands of little steps, little choices, you will eventually stand on the summit of that mountain and do what you thought was impossible. And so here's what I really want to encourage you with today and this morning. Sometimes making choices to change our lives or making choices to change our health for the better can look like an impossible mountain to climb. But remember, you are not doing it alone. You have God's power to help. He is at your side. I love this promise in Isaiah chapter 41 and verse 10. It says this, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." You know, dear friends, I just want to remind you today, we all veer off the course because of life's unexpected events. We all make mistakes and we even make bad choices at times. But when that happens, don't beat yourself up with guilt. Don't just get all that negative self-talk going and just let yourself get discouraged and beat up by the enemy. I want to encourage you, simply turn to God for help. Make course corrections, little choices at a time to get back on track, and choose to keep going because God is at your side. And remember, no matter what you're going through right now, God's got that very thing, and God's got you. Thank you for joining us for Recharge with Richardson. Don't forget to join us for our next episode, and until then, may God fill you with joy and peace and hope.